Three, two, one.
Glowing Up Latina, Season 3, Episode 22.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Glowing Up Latina.
Hello,
Hi.
I'm Christina,
I'm Amanda.
and today we are here with Lore. Lore, please say hi.
Hello, everybody.
So, this is actually a first for Glowing Up Latina because Lore is a listener of the podcast.
Yay!
Round of
Yay.
applause.
Round of applause. Confetti, confetti, confetti.
So, Lore, I think I'll let you do this part because you reached out to us. So, can you explain a little bit? First of all, she gave us some amazing flowers. We love you for that, always and forever. But she also reached out to us with something that we believe is very important to share on the show, and we are so grateful that you did. So, I'll let you get into that.
Okay, I'm doing good. I'm a little nervous, I'm not gonna lie. Um, but I'm honored to be here. I sent in an email about a topic that was near and dear very much to my current life right now. And I reached out because I found this podcast. I remember I was looking through some app and I was like, Latina podcast, like somewhere I could relate to. And you guys were like brand new. I think you only had maybe a handful of episodes. And I really liked the dynamic. And then you guys were around my same age. And so I was like, I find myself relating a lot. Um, and then, this whole life thing happened. And I found myself not having many people to relate to. And so I reached out wanting to see if maybe other people felt like that too. And this was the platform that made it happen to where I could tell my story and hopefully it affects other people in positive ways.
Thank you, Lore.
Yes, thank you. Wow, so you're like an OG listener. That's really cool.
Yeah, I found you guys brand new. I was like, oh, okay, let's see what this is.
So
Goodness, so you
you,
got to hear the underwater mics and everything.
It was kind of funny. Yeah.
you're a day one listener. Just a handful of episodes out. Wow, we were still trying to figure out a few things. We're still also trying to figure out things, but yeah.
Yeah, when IT came along, your little IT crew, yeah, it was just been fun to see how you develop over the season. So good job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so before we jump into our episode tonight, though, how is everybody doing? Are we doing okay? How was our day?
Lore, you go first because you're our guest. Go ahead.
It was good. It was your normal adult day, except I worked from home, so I just worked from home. Um, I am, I guess this week I'll be officially 8 months pregnant. So kind of just dealing with the day-to-day up and downs of that. A lot of up and down to the restroom, which I did not expect as much. Um, a lot of feelings, random feelings. But today's been a good day. Yesterday, no. Yesterday would have been a different answer, but today is a good day.
I work today, and work is kicking my ass here lately, but I'm very excited that we got to schedule this because we were going around a little bit, and it took us a
Mhm.
minute to get it on the calendar, but very excited to be here, you guys.
Yes, definitely the highlight of my day. It's been a week and last week was a week, so I'm just hoping next week and tomorrow. Wait, I should say first. Whoa, tongue twisted here, tongue tied here. Tomorrow is the 1st of March, so I'm hoping next week, first week of March, that everything is gonna go well. New month, new beginnings, because I cannot anymore. This week is driving me crazy.
And tomorrow is Friday, which I'm always excited for. So, what we'll be talking about today is Lore's IVF journey. Because as you heard, she is almost 8 months pregnant, which congratulations.
Thank
And
you.
I do have a silly question if you're up for it.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, go ahead.
so in this time that you've been pregnant, what do you think is like, I don't want to say silliest, because not that any of our emotions are ever silly, but what is like the craziest thing that made you cry that you didn't expect?
Uh, there's a video, my husband has it, but he uses it as bait. So I think I was maybe like 3 months or so, and I was getting out of the first trimester. I had a lot of nausea, and the nausea came back for revenge. So that was a plot twist. Um, but there were only certain things I could eat, and the cravings are real. Like they are like no other. I have cried from eating chicken nuggets after I've wanted chicken nuggets. But in this case, I woke up and I felt so hungry. Like the hunger was intense. I was like a savage. And I really wanted, it had to be a McDonald's fruit smoothie. I think it was like the mango orange one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that one. And if they didn't have that one, then I would send them to another one. But I was crying in the kitchen because I really wanted it. I hadn't even brushed my teeth. I just went out there crying already from the morning.
Oh.
And he recorded it, and part of it, I'm like crying. My hair's like in a big messy bun, and I'm like, go get it. And yep, that's been it. And then he came back with it maybe like 10 minutes later. And I just remember sitting at the table and just sipping it, doing my like happy pregnant dance. And I've never had a smoothie that tasted that good. I'll say that.
Oh my goodness.
It's fun. It's an adventure.
That is really cute because I'm imagining you being
Happy, just doing a happy
eating your
dance.
smoothie.
Yeah.
My little happy prego dance. I'll do that out in public, and then sometimes I'll look over and somebody sees me and kind of just makes me want to do it more.
Exactly.
Okay, you guys. So I did have to get that out of the way because I always wonder, like, what is like, because I'll be honest with you, I'm an emotional wreck, like as is, like no additional hormones. So
Mhm.
just introducing all the hormones, I'm very interested to see what that kind of Christina is like.
Oh
um,
my goodness.
but so if you could introduce yourself a little bit, tell us a little about yourself, share, please.
Okay, yeah. So I go by Lore, but my full name is Lorena. But Lores, because if you say Lorena, I feel like I'm getting scolded. And I'm 29. Yeah, currently pregnant with our IVF baby. It's a girl, and I'm super excited. Um, I live with my husband in Texas. We just moved here about 2 years ago, and we also have our two goofy dogs. They're kind of our babies right now, so it's going to be an adjustment for them. We met in college, and after a few years of staying in our home state, we decided that we wanted to leave and explore what life could be like somewhere else. So, moving and leaving our families was a really difficult decision, but we knew we had a bigger reason to do it besides just wanting to go. Um, so, kind of before that, I had already started digging into the fertility stuff, and we wanted to go to a bigger city that had more resources. So that was kind of what is it? Kind of like the cherry on top to make us move and explore. And so that's what we did. And it's what's been happening. We spent most of last year in fertility treatments, and in a few months, hopefully, we'll be in newborn bliss.
Wow, that's so exciting. So with that IVF journey, Lore, if you don't mind, what did your journey to pregnancy look like even before you started IVF?
Ooh,
Yes. So
so
like what was happening in your home state that was like kind
mhm.
of pushing you?
So, ooh, that takes us back a while. It was a long journey. It probably started around the time I was 26, so roughly about like 3 years ago. I had gone off of birth control after about 10 or 11 years on it. So I was prescribed it whenever I was 15 because I had really irregular periods. So my mom just took me to the doctor one day, and I remember there were no tests. There was no blood work. There was nothing really to try to find a root cause of it. It was kind of just masked as, well, this is your puberty years, so this is what's going to happen, and here's birth control to fix it. And so I took that. I was on it for about 10 years, and then we started trying, but not really trying. But still, within like 2 years of doing that, I started to notice I had different symptoms. So I started to look into them, and I thought I had PCOS. And so that's when I went to my OB in the previous state, and I told her my concerns, my symptoms. I was gaining weight. I had all this like, I don't even know what it's called, like the acne around your chin.
The cystic
Um,
acne?
Cystic acne, yeah.
Hmm.
I was losing a bunch of hair. yeah, almost like to make a whole wig. It was kind of scary. And then, of course, no period. So I could go like 6+ months without one, and that would be completely normal for me. And as we know, that's not normal. Shouldn't happen, even though I was happy to not have a period. It shouldn't happen. But yeah, so I knew something was wrong. And when I tried to explain that, I kind of got shrugged off. Um, but I knew that we were already planning a likely move. And so I just waited out those few months and we agreed to start fresh in a new state. And that's kind of what led to our whole fertility journey here.
And if you don't mind me asking, the doctor in your home state, was she Hispanic? Like, how was that looking like?
I don't remember if she was Hispanic. I feel like she was. I feel like for a period of time, I tried to like almost blank that out because it was traumatic. I felt really invalidated. I felt like I wasn't heard or seen. And as much as I tried to advocate for myself, it's rough. I mean, you're a young woman in your 20s and you're not a doctor. You think you know what's going on based on research. And I mean, my background is in science, so I'm pretty nerdy. I get into the details and everything. And so I was pretty confident and I just got shrugged off. So I don't know if it had to do with, seeing that I'm young, maybe not believing fully in me. But yeah, she wasn't, she just didn't believe me, I guess, or didn't bother to do any of the tests. And at that point, I was so fed up that I was like, you know what, we're just going to start over. And I'm going to look for very specific doctors in the new area.
And so, how did that
Mhm.
process go for you? Did it go better when you moved to Texas?
Yes. So it was funny. So my home state had a large Hispanic population, but now here in Texas, in southern Texas, we have a larger, like, I want to say maybe like a first and second generation of like Latinos here. And so I find myself really fitting in, like feeling like I'm more at home and also having a lot more options whenever it comes to medical staff like that. Um, so it was so easy to find somebody that was younger, that was more up to date on like stuff like PCOS and would see that it was more common. Um, and then she heard me out and I finally felt seen. So it was nice to find somebody that kind of relates to you and will see you as more than just whatever your ethnic background is.
And I feel like maybe we might have missed it, but you're first gen too, right?
Yeah, first gen Mexican American. Yeah, so it's been interesting. It's definitely been where you have to figure everything out yourself, but um, I do think I've come out stronger because of it.
And did you
Mhm.
officially get your PCOS diagnosis? Is that kind of what helped put you on the path towards IVF?
Yes. So my OB here, love her. I will always remember her. I actually had to switch OB, so she's not my OB anymore, but she was younger and she looked past everything that I had been told before and listened and truly took in what I was saying had been happening. And she did the blood work, she did the scans, she did these painful tests that I hated, but they needed to be done. Um, and what do you know? Like it was confirmed I had PCOS for quite a while because I had at least a dozen cysts on each ovary. Um, so luckily, like they can stay there. They're not doing anything. They're not growing. But it makes me wonder, what if I was never believed? What if like nobody had ever caught it? Um, so I'm forever grateful for her. And yeah, that diagnosis is kind of what led us to the referral that she did to a fertility center. And that's where our whole parenthood journey started.
And for those who might not know, PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's
Mhm.
correct. Okay.
Mhm.
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit what PCOS is, why it affects your ability to get pregnant?
Yeah, so it could be different for many people. I know a lot of TikTok videos started coming out around that time of like different types of PCOS. So I had like the insulin type, or I guess I still have the insulin type, where my blood sugar was really off and it affected a lot of my hormones. So that's kind of where the weight gain came from. And then that's where all the acne and the hair loss, like all the hormones were just completely off. And because of that, I mean, our our periods are regulated by hormones. I didn't get that. And you can't ovulate and have eggs release if you don't have a period. So my chances of uh, getting a kid naturally, like a traditional way that most people do, were pretty much zero because I never ovulated. And that's the case for a lot of people with PCOS. They don't have regular periods, or some do, but they're super heavy. So I guess not really regular. But there's always something usually with them. So there's the insulin type, and I think there's like another two main types. But yeah, it can vary from person to person, and it doesn't seem like there's really a cure. Like there's things you could do to help you out and try to regulate your system, but it's still kind of like being discovered, it seems like.
And so when you got your PCOS diagnosis and were able to go from there, were there any lifestyle changes that you had to make prior to starting your IVF journey?
I had asked about that, and at that point, because we transitioned so quickly, we had been trying already for like 2 years at that point. We just went directly from the diagnosis to fertility treatment. I didn't really make any lifestyle changes besides starting to take a medicine called metformin, and that was going to be used to kind of regulate my sugar levels, which I believe through blood work was confirmed that it was working. But then after first trimester, I had to stop taking those. So we're gonna have to do a whole new plan after I deliver this baby to see um, address the PCOS stuff. But yeah, besides that, it was the other recommendation was go on like a Mediterranean type of diet or like a low carb diet. Um, and I love bread, so that would be very hard. But we'll see what happens. But like now there's like options and it's like confirmed and I feel good moving forward with it.
So you mentioned a bit about not being able to ovulate, so you weren't dropping that egg. And
Mhm.
if some people don't know, because it did take me a while to learn this about our female anatomy,
Mhm.
that one egg is released whenever you have your period. And I mean, once it's either going to find sperm to like, turn into an embryo, have a baby, all of that, or it, I don't want to say it goes away, but yeah, it's like not there anymore. It's like use it or lose it, basically.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
So in order for you to go through IVF, you have to retrieve eggs to then, put with the sperm and be able to have a baby. Can
Mhm.
you talk about what that egg retrieval process looks like?
Yeah, so obviously you have to have your ovaries stimulated, so having a period, like you said, to release that egg. And it is pretty much it's like use it or lose it in normal cases. But in this case, with egg retrieval, they will take all your eggs you have that cycle. So it's kind of funny. So we're born and we're born with all the eggs we will have in our lifetime. Like it's crazy to think that like the little fetus in me now is she has all her eggs that she will ever have. So I like to think I'm carrying my grandchildren, but so it's kind of cool. Like the female body, it's like it releases a certain amount, or it I shouldn't say releases, it produces or matures a certain amount per month, and then it'll release a mature one. And that's essentially what the sperm have a chance to create an embryo with. Um, so for egg retrieval, to stimulate your ovaries, you have to have a period. So although at this point I hated birth control after being on it for so long, I had to get back on it for a few months. And that way they had a cycle to track and work with me for. So I had that cycle. I was on birth control for about a month. And then 2 weeks after birth control was done, I had multiple ultrasounds to look at my ovaries, and they would see how many eggs are maturing, how many are in each ovary. And it was actually really cool. And like just the way that your body works, like you start to discover just how crazy it all is and how much science goes into it. But with egg retrieval, they actually have you take certain pills. I think it was estrogen, and then you have to take certain shots in your tummy. And they give you a schedule. They time it out. Like they will have it down to science. And then they'll try to mature all the eggs that they can. So in reality, you have like a total of maybe like between like 15 to 30 eggs, depending on the person, and they're making them all big. And so you actually get really bloated and it gets really painful down there. So you're walking into your appointment and you're kind of wobbling around because all your eggs are bigger than they normally are. And so retrieval happens about 3 weeks after the birth control was done. And the total process was probably about 2 months, because then there were some tests that you have to do beforehand. They like shove like ink through your tubes to make sure that they're not blocked. And you're doing that, and it's kind of cool. And it's like in a machine, but it hurts. But it is kind of cool to see. And then there's another one where they like fill a balloon up in your uterus and with water. And I mean, you're awake through all of this, but then they have to like press and they're seeing like the shape and everything. So before egg retrieval, they're making sure that your body is going to be able to handle this. Um, but yeah, then they retrieve your eggs and it's a whole other process from there.
That's crazy that you're awake during all. So how are you feeling like when all of this is happening? Like that you're awake for all of these things that are being done to you.
It's it's insane. I mean, they'll explain it to you, and I love the staff that we were with. I think they're so empathetic because they know like we're already like struggling. Um, and so they'll explain it to you. You have these nurses that are so attentive, but it's scary because you don't know if there's more issues than what you already know. So it's like you're doing this test, and in real time, you're going to find out, is there something else I have to deal with? Is there now another surgery I have to do? Is there another test? Like it's nerve-wracking. Um, and for retrieval, they actually give you, no, you actually go down. You're sedated for retrieval. So they prep you, they take you to the back, and it's about like an hour. And then you just wake up and they give you snacks and they're very nice to you. And then you recover for about like a few days to a week probably to feel back to normal. But yeah, it's all a process. It's all, especially if it's your first time doing it, because there are people that do it multiple times. I think it was frightening. It was really scary. And for a lot of it, because of the machines around you, at least in our clinic, I couldn't have my husband with me. So it was a lot more scarier without that.
I'm sure well, how did you and your husband feel when you received the news of how many eggs you guys retrieved?
Oh man, oh that was the best. I was so proud of myself. I was like, I did that. I made those eggs. So they told us right after I woke up, they're like, we got 19 eggs. And I was like, I made 19 eggs. Like I was kind of loopy. I was out of it. And I was just happy. I was there like drinking out of a sippy straw, like the little apple juice box. But although it was 19, like I was still unaware of the process, like fully what they had
Mhm.
to go through. So that was a great number to start off with. But yeah, 19 in that cycle. So in the next cycle, if we would have done it again, it probably would have been somewhere around that same kind, like 19, 20-ish.
Oh, wow. I do want to come back to the eggs you
Mhm,
retrieved. But before we move on to that, I do have a question because in my research for this, I
mhm,
learned about a trigger shot and how time sensitive it is. So can you
mhm.
explain a little bit what a trigger shot is and why it is so time sensitive?
Yeah, so we actually used trigger shots. We did 3 rounds of a treatment called time tracking, where they also track your cycle, and then they'll track what days you're probably going to ovulate, and they'll have it down to an hour. Like you have to take it between this hour, and sometimes it's like 11 to 12 a.m. or sometimes it's like 6 to 7 a.m. and you have to do it at that time. So the trigger shot is what stimulated my ovaries to ovulate. And from there, you have about, what is it, 48 hour window or so to try to have a baby or try to make a baby. Um, but it's also kind of weird because you don't feel like yourself. I definitely didn't feel like myself. I kind of felt like I would get like a hot flash whenever I take the trigger shot because you're taking it in your belly and you can kind of feel the medicine go in. It's really weird. You get used to it, but it's really weird. And I would get nauseous. And so I'm not in the mood, but that's our window. So, I mean, those 3 cycles, they didn't work for us for who knows what reason. But maybe that wasn't the way that we were supposed to have it work out. But yeah, trigger shots are they're pretty cool. They just have them down to a science, and then you have your window.
And those 3 cycles, they were IUI, is that correct?
No, so they gave us 3
Or
options.
right.
So there was time tracking, which was it's kind of like the most, it's definitely the least invasive, and it's the most like quote unquote natural like way. Um, so they track my cycle. I go in for weekly ultrasounds to make sure that like no new cyst or anything has grown, nothing's changed, that everything's on track. And then at the end of like the 3rd week, they give me the timing and the day that I'm going to do the trigger shot. And then that's essentially our window to try. And then, like 2 weeks later, you go in for your blood test, and that either confirms or not confirms a pregnancy. Yeah. And then after that, it was IUI, which was a little bit more invasive. So that's intrauterine insemination. And they pretty much, I didn't do that one, but I was told it's like a tube goes up there and they insert his sample. So it's meant to go into like somewhere closer to where your ovaries are. That way, like the sperm can travel further. And so it kind of increases your chances. But for us, it didn't increase it as much as it was worth it because it was more invasive and then it was still like weekly appointments. So we just skipped that and went straight to IVF.
And then for, from egg retrieval, prior to that, you were talking about the ovarian stimulation. So
Mhm.
is there, again, I was doing some research on this and I understand that like it's different for everybody, but one of the things that I read was that there's usually like this 2 week window where you're doing the injections and then you do a trigger shot, and then within that time, like I think it was they said like 70 to 48 hours, you go in to have your egg retrieval.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't remember doing a full 2 weeks of shots. I think I did for implantation. I think for retrieval, I only did a few days. And I did take estrogen pills, I think almost a few full 2 weeks before. So
Oh,
on top of the birth control, then did that. But it varies from person to person.
Hmm.
And your plans are so customized to you. Um, but yeah, that's when the shots start. It's around that time, and then you get really used to it afterwards.
so did you, with your sit down with your doctor, and were they able to sit down and kind of make a plan with you so you kind of knew when things were happening?
Yeah, so the doctor would prepare the plan, and at first she would go over it with us, and then from there they would pass it on to a nurse, and then the nurse was in charge of calling us and sending it through like our online portal and making sure we went day by day. We would always meet in an office for a consult before we left. And I would take my little pen and write notes, and then she would write stuff, and then they would show us like, this is how you do a shot. Or in some cases, they even had me do it in the office. They had me bring the supplies that had already arrived at the house. And I sometimes you'd have to take it, like they'd have to be refrigerated. So I would take my ice packs and everything with needles. And they were so nice. They would just show you there, they do it there. They would give you like tips and tricks to kind of help out with the process. So they've really got it down. So that was nice that they would at least like give you time at every appointment to make sure you're all cut up and you know what to do because it is very delicate.
Okay. And then to bring it back to your egg retrieval, like you said, you had 19 eggs that were retrieved. And from that 19, only a certain number mature. Is that correct? And then only
Mhm.
a certain number can be fertilized. And then only a certain number become the embryos that are ready for plantation. So can you explain that
Yeah.
process a little bit?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. So, we started at 19. And so we went from 19 to 10 to 7 to 3 and 3. And that's what we ended up with. So at the 19, that's all the eggs they took. So whether they were fully mature or not, they just took everything they saw. And of those, then only 10 actually like met the measurements or whatever like they were looking for to show that they were mature. And then of those 10, only 7 actually fertilized. And then of those 7, only 3 made it to like it was day 5 and day 6. They give them a certain amount of days to mature and see if they start to split up into cells. So you just see kind of like a blob, and then it becomes like smaller, bigger blobs. Um, or it's kind of contradictory, but there's a lot more smaller blobs than the big blob. So that's it splitting up and developing. And so only 3 ended up doing that. And then we chose the route to get them tested. So you can do genetic testing or you cannot. So some people just get them fertilized and then they're like a fresh transfer. So they don't know if they're going to make it or not. They don't know if they're ever going to fertilize. And so they'll just get them in there and then they put a few because of that. They don't know how many are going to make it. In our case, I didn't want to do this again and again and again. So I wanted to get them tested. I wanted to know the chances of it. My husband was fully on board. Um, and so we got those tested and they came back and we tried one and we were really lucky that it worked with the first one.
For your other 2, those are currently frozen.
Yeah, they are surviving the ice age.
And if you don't mind me asking, like, do you plan to have more children? Like, are you a big family person or?
I came from a big family. I'm the 4th, I'm the baby, I'm the best one of 4. So we were always a big family. And Hispanic or Latin families, they're huge. Um, and I don't know how many cousins I have, like probably easily over 100. But I used to think I wanted 4. And then I went down to 3. And then eventually I was like, I think 2 would be good. But we have the other 2. And so I know it's definitely in our plans to go ahead and try them because they're all we have left. So there's no guarantee that either one of them or both of them will work too. Um, so we'll just see what happens in the future. But I do want my current baby to have a sibling. So whether it's that way, and if it doesn't work, then adoption, I think we'll definitely at least have 2.
So Lotta, you mentioned the genetic testing, that's an option for, for some women. Can you like go into that? What type of genetic testing? I believe from what I looked up, there's like a mosaic type of results when it comes to doing some type of genetic testing with the eggs.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. It's really complex. It took us a lot to even try to understand
Right.
what the mosaic thing meant. Because the embryo we implanted was a mosaic embryo, and she just happened to turn into a baby and self-corrected. So, okay, going back to that. So the embryos can get tested. They remove a few cells. They're specific labs, and they remove a few cells from the outside. And then from there, they'll test all the chromosomes. So our DNA, or we're made up. I don't even know what the proper term is, but we have 46 chromosomes. So we have 23 pairs, and each pair means something. I mean, we know like the XY, XX to determine if we're male or female. But then there's the other 22 pairs. They all mean either genetics or some of them are going to be diseases, some of them are going to be syndromes. And so we have those tested because if there is, sometimes they do detect that it has a chromosome or a deformality that isn't viable with life. So if you hadn't had it tested and it did have that chromosome affected and you implant it, your body could sense that and reject it and you would have miscarriage. And so already going through this, I was like, I want to know like what is going to be for sure, what's going to be best, not just for whatever baby turns out I'm carrying, but also for me and my body. And so luckily for us, our three, we have the one that came out the low complex mosaic, I should say. And then the other 2 were completely normal. And we chose to implant the low complex mosaic to give her the best chance right now, before I know like if I have any complications after this pregnancy, And then I'm also younger. I know my doctor told me that that didn't affect anything, my age, but in my head, I'm like, I'm younger now. I want to give
Mhm.
her a better shot.
Yeah.
And so we chose to put her in. And there's this thing called self-correction that, so these low mosaic, it pretty much means they have a mixture of abnormal and normal chromosomes. And so two of her chromosomes were affected. Um, One of them, it wasn't viable with life. But if that were absolutely true, because some of these tests aren't 100%, and just like this one kind of falls into that. And um, so she's presented with like these cells that are affected and then these cells that aren't. And in some cases, the cells that aren't can actually like overtake the ones that are. And that's the self-correction.
Mm.
Um, and so the first step was seeing if she would even implant, which she did, and very early. I took a pregnancy test 3 days later after implantation, and I saw the double line.
Mhm.
Oh man, and the tears that came out after
Oh.
years. It was, I did so much ugly crying. Um, and then, so that's the first step. So, okay, she implanted, but now there's more hurdles because she's still low mosaic. Um, and so then the second hurdle was, is she going to make it to the phase where she gets a heartbeat? So that was
Mhm.
around 8 weeks. And there it was, strong as ever. And then the last phase was kind of, are we going to make it past the first trimester? Because
Mhm.
most miscarriages happen there.
Right.
And we did. And ever since then, it's kind of been like keeping an eye on it, but our chances of miscarriage went down and down each week, especially after the first trimester. So you never know, but we did so many meetings with the genetic counselors and then our doctors, and it's almost like nobody can give you a for sure, yes, it will work, no, it will not.
Mhm.
And that was really frustrating because we had to do our own research. I joined online support groups, and those finally gave us the encouragement to give it a shot. And so if it hadn't been for those, I don't know if I'd be here pregnant with her. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
And I forgot to mention at the top of this episode, so we are actually going to do 2 episodes, Lore. Right now, we're getting into, as I'm sure you figured out, the more technical side of IVF. And her second episode will be the more personal side, where we'll get into the support groups and more what she was dealing with emotionally during her IVF journey and during her pregnancy.
Mhm.
Um, but you said something in your response that made that question I forgot earlier click. And it was, so I read, and I guess I want to confirm with you or have you elaborate more, that freezing eggs doesn't affect like their, I don't want to say, I guess well-being is the word that I want to use. Like
Mhm.
they'll still be like good for implantation, whether you use them right at the time that you get them or freeze them and use them a couple years later.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. As long as your clinic is doing everything the right way, there is a, I mean, there's obviously like risks and everything, and you sign off on that at the beginning. There's risks when it comes to thawing your eggs, but I mean, we got lucky, and I don't know how common it is if there's a lot of people that have risks in the thawing process, but she actually had to get thawed because they freeze them right after they make it to day 5 or 6. So once they're blastocyst or blast,
Mhm.
that they've divided into all these cells, they freeze them. And so she thawed, and I remember the embryologist came up to us and they were like, she thawed beautifully. And right away after she was thawed, she kept splitting up. And I was
Mm.
like, yeah, that a girl. And so I think in most cases, if they're doing it properly, then it should be just fine. But it doesn't affect the quality of them, I believe.
Okay, now what I'm sure everybody might be wondering, IVF, as we all know, is very expensive. So, can you tell us, like insurance wise, what has been the most surprising thing for you in this process?
It was definitely how much we had to be our own advocate, which I was already kind of used to with all the past medical stuff. But when it came to insurance, I was like appalled. I was shocked because it's our insurance, it's our benefits that we pay for. Um, so it was very disheartening and very frustrating because on top of your whole load of fertility stuff that you're learning and dealing with, now you have this. And it's almost like the system is built to not help you. Um, and that was just my experience. It could be better for other people, but I'm on top of it now because of it. Um, but yeah, for us, it was literally like if we didn't know our benefits, they wouldn't be honored. And I believe it has to do with who you're also working with and getting treated by. So for us, although I love the clinic, there were processes that I was not made aware of, neither of us was made aware of, that I had to learn, or I had to call the insurance almost daily for a good while, and then have them call and then do three ways with all the billing and specialist people. Um, so it was very tiring, it was frustrating. I found out that payments were inconsistent with what would show online versus what the insurance was getting like called out.
Mm.
And then there was reasoning behind it, and everything balanced out at the end. But it's like, it's already expensive as it is. And I'll say, luckily for us, our insurance, we were blessed to have fertility coverage up to 30K for our lifetime, which I'm sure by now we've exhausted that. So like a typical treatment of IVF is probably around 30K. And since we did the previous 3 cycles, they weren't IVF, but they were still considered fertility. We've probably been done with that. And even with having 30K, there are some things that certain clinics or doctors, they won't have insurance cover. So for us, that probably added up to, with our copayment and deductible, probably between like 5 to 7K out of pocket. And that's with insurance helping. But it was really sad because it's already a difficult process. And then you have this added challenge to go through. And in support groups, you would hear people saying, I refinanced my home again. I took out a third loan. I borrowed money again. And you could see the stress on their face, all just to get to this family that they want. So it's all the burdens that come with it, the financing thing, it does not help. And we were blessed in that way. We were lucky. But I definitely know there's families out there that are really having way more struggles with it.
And this doesn't include the cost because you have to pay for the storage of your frozen embryos, no? So this doesn't include, that's an ongoing cost until you use them, correct?
Yeah, and luckily that one, it wasn't as expensive as I thought it'd be. I was actually really scared and prepared to be terrified of it. But that I was actually very surprised. It just depends on your clinic where they choose to send your embryos,
Mm.
and that'll vary from place to place. And then you can choose, like, I think the longest plan was like up to 10 or 15 years. Maybe it was just 10. But yeah, I'm surprised. That was actually very more cost effective than I thought it was going to be.
Oh, okay. And are you paying monthly for coverage for 10 years or do you pay like an upfront fee?
You could do, well, I think, again, I think it depends like where you're storing them, but I saw that you could do monthly, or you could do upfront all of it, and then it would be like almost like discounted.
Mhm.
But yeah, I was actually pretty surprised by that. And again, maybe we just got lucky on that part, that it wasn't something that really hurt us.
Okay. And that cost, does it include like the transportation of them, like the thawing of them? Like what does it include that cost for? Is it just storage?
It's just storage pretty much. Yeah.
Okay.
If at some point we choose to move back, we would have to transfer them. And then there's the transfer fee. It
Mm.
didn't say per each one. It just said like for our general like samples. Um, but that also, I was surprised it also was not bad. Like I think it was a few hundred. So I was relieved by that. If it doesn't change it, hopefully. But yeah, and then whatever clinic you go to, I mean, they're gonna do their own charges. Like the main charges that we got that added up to a few thousand that were not covered by insurance.
Mhm.
They did include the transportation fee from the clinic here to the bigger city that they went to, and this temporary storage here, the handling of them, and those were just not covered by insurance. So it was really weird. There's certain aspects depending on where you go and what doctor that just aren't covered, and you just kind of have to deal with it. It's not even like a take it or leave it. It's kind of like I have to take it because I'm already here.
Mhm.
So I might as well find a way to make it work.
Right.
So then your embryos, they're not where you are at. They're in a different like city altogether.
Yeah, they're still in the state. They're probably about like 2 hours away.
Gotta keep
Yeah, so
track.
I'm like, I'll wave hi from afar.
And can you like run through a list for us of things that you had to purchase, things like what went into that out-of-pocket expense? Because in my head you had the 30K coverage and then you said 5 to 6 came out of pocket. So in total, this process was almost $40,000 for y'all to do. So what
Mhm.
was included in that? Like if you were getting a receipt, what would it look like?
I think our deductible would be the first one. And then would be our out of pocket for insurance. And then it'd be probably supplies that I had to buy. And that ranged from constant ice packs or medicine, co-pays for medicine and all that stuff. There's so many shots, so I actually ordered it's like an automatic, like I don't want to say shotgun, but you insert the needle into it and then it just like automatically shoots it into you with the really long, like 1.5 inch syringes. Um, and then I just had to keep buying more and more stuff because I was running out. I mean, every day you're taking multiple shots. Um, and that probably includes some of our transportation. So in a bigger city, we probably live about like 45 minutes away from the clinic. So back and forth, at some points, it was every day for a while. At other points, it was every other day. Um, but yeah, it just all slowly added up. I think the majority of it was in deductible copay and just random stuff that insurance wasn't covering as much, like certain medicines. Um, yeah, that's pretty much where it went. Okay, I think the biggest portion, I forgot to mention, the biggest portion was um that fee that the clinic charged, that it wasn't covered in insurance. I think that was maybe close to like 4K, was the handling temporary storage,
Mm.
sending them off, all the paperwork. Um, and I remember fighting them on that, and they were saying like just anybody that comes through the clinic and does that is responsible for that out of pocket. So yeah, that was a bummer. I did not know that going into it, but I don't think it would have changed it for us. It would have helped to mentally prepare, but yeah, it is what it is.
So for everything you do, it's shipping and handling fees, no matter what you buy.
Yep. Yeah, you buy something on Amazon, shipping and handling.
Shipping and handling.
So in this process, paying for all of this stuff, are there things that you were able to successfully like challenge your insurance on or cost that you were able to like bring down a little bit?
Yeah, so it all came back to like you have to be your own advocate, and I really had to get over like the nerves and politeness that I usually have. Um, so there were some points where they didn't want to pay or they didn't want to cover the anesthesia that was used during egg retrieval, like that's an example. And
Oh my
I
God,
had to make a
I'm sorry, that's an expensive cost, right?
Yeah.
I think it was like 1,500 because it was like an hour. But still, I was like, that's all gonna add up. Like, they can't just like, that was one thing. I know there was some more
Mhm.
other things, but that's the one I remember because that was like the first one I had to encounter, and they hadn't deemed it medically necessary.
Excuse me?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I was like, excuse me, that's exactly what I said. Um, and they were like, well, the people on our end didn't deem it medically necessary, but if you get a letter from the clinic saying it was medically necessary, it'll be fully covered. And I was like, yes, I am going to do this.
So,
And
so
so I got that.
I'm
And
so
so
upset.
I got that. Oh, yeah, I was upset too. I'm still upset. And I got that. And then all of a sudden my bill came back and it was like $10.
Good
Yeah.
for
And I was like,
you.
yes, I was like, that makes a difference. That is a mortgage payment versus like something from McDonald's I could buy myself. Like I shouldn't have to pay for that. And
Yeah.
then like why do you need the justification? I'm getting eggs retrieved.
Mhm.
Yes, I have to be sedated for that. Like if you just look up the process, it's this huge needle that goes into your
Mhm.
privates and it's painful. I mean, I was bleeding for days. Some people keep bleeding and they have to go transfer to other places. You're walking funny, you're bloated. Like it's a surgical procedure. It's only,
Right.
I think in total maybe 30 minutes, and then they're
Mhm.
like starting to clean up and everything. But it's still like you have to go under. It's painful. You can't take anything for it.
Exactly. I'm sorry. Do you want me to be awake the entire time and see how they're taking
Yes,
out the eggs?
exactly. I'm like, who is deciding this?
Because your uterus is being stabbed 19 times to take these eggs
Your
out, correct?
your
Ovaries, sorry,
your
not your
ovaries.
uterus.
Ovary,
So
yeah.
sorry.
I don't know if they're doing constant stabbing, but they are getting stabbed is the point.
Let me stab your ovaries, see how you like
All I'm saying,
Yeah.
or something else, and let's see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm
Mhm.
very happy that you were able to do that and that you successfully challenged. That is
Mhm.
crazy.
Yeah, and there were a few other things. I remember whenever we were ordering the medicine, the nurse would send everything that we'd need to a specific clinic. Um, and they were in charge of like sending out that medicine to all over the US. So we would get a big box and it was always like a refrigerated thing. And I remember at some point, I think part of the vials they added up to like 10,000 something dollars. And my insurance wasn't taking it. And I was like, no, no, no. And so I called back and they were like, oh, yeah, something was wrong in the paperwork. Let me correct that. And then all of a sudden, $100 copay. That's it. And I was like, wow,
That's a
like
huge
you have
difference.
to be, yeah, you have to be on top of it.
Mhm.
And like it's just such an added stress. And I took that on. I told my husband I would take that on, and he took on other things. So it was a balancing act for us. But man, that did not feel like it was balanced at all with the insurance stuff. It was insane.
Mhm.
And so learning from that, now this year, from the very January 1st, I was like, I am getting myself a little accounting book and I'm keeping all my receipts and keeping track at my online portal, all my deductible and stuff.
Mhm.
And already I've had to make calls and I've had a few hundred refunded to me. And it's
Good.
barely about to be March.
Oh yeah.
Wow. You're
Goodness.
going
Yeah.
into like the first quarter, like with the bang, but you're getting stuff back. So just that's
Hmm.
great. Good.
It's just a bummer. You have to keep up with it. It's like it, it's meant like it's supposed to be a system you can trust, and you're already dealing with like your medical stuff, and life is crazy as it is, and then it's just one more thing on your plate. But I guess that's adulting.
Yes, I will say, even if you're not going through IVF, you're just going to the doctor regularly, check your bills because I've had medical
Hmm.
expenses here lately where I've had to call and be like, well, I don't understand why this charge is here. Like, this did not happen during our visit. And they'll be like, oh, it was just a computer error. And it's like, bro, how many computer errors are there actually?
Yes.
Hmm.
Learn the word CPT code, learn the word diagnosis. So that way you will go very far in your phone calls with insurance and they'll be like, oh my God, this person knows a lot of terminology for this. So,
Yeah, get your itemized bills.
yes.
Make sure you're writing down stuff. Yeah.
You have to, and it's, you guys, please pay attention to your medical
Mm-hmm.
bills. It is very, like, just no matter what you're doing when you're dealing
Mm-hmm.
with a doctor.
Hmm. I would
Um,
even say go further than that. Pay attention to all your bills.
yeah, that too.
Yeah. I saw people like getting stuff from their mortgage and just getting these random fees in there. And I was like, what? Like, what is happening? So yeah, it's a whole other 24/7 job, but it's worth
Your
it.
money, guys, your money.
Hmm.
Pay attention.
Generational wealth, guys.
We are
Yes.
trying. They are
Yes.
trying to beat us down, but we will not let them.
Nuts. No.
Something that we did kind of gloss over that I want to go back to because I did not know this and I want to make sure other people know. You mentioned that the coverage for your fertility benefits, they're lifetime. Like, so no matter how many times that you start with this policy, like over again, that is it. You're capped, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So we are capped. I'm pretty sure. I haven't checked if we did cap it out or not. I feel like we did, but yeah, yeah, lifetime. And I've met other friends I've gone through IVF too, and some of them only have like 5K coverage. Some of them only have 10. I don't know if theirs was lifetime, but it really varies, and it still seems like it's really rare from plan to plan,
Mhm.
depending on who your employer is and what insurance you have. If you even have that benefit or not. Some people just don't have that option.
Well, thank you so much for explaining all of this to us. We
Yeah.
are very grateful, and I know that somebody out there will also be very grateful. My Last question for you. It's kind of twofold. What is something that you wish people going through this process knew?
So something I wish that they knew, very personal to me, is you're not alone. There's so many people going through the same thing. I think the statistic that came from our clinic was 1 in every 6 couples go through fertility issues. So it is so common. I mean, it's so common, it's just not talked about enough. But if you look online, if you look through Facebook groups, your clinic usually has something where they have a specific support group. You will find your community and you will not feel as alone. Um, and also the feel all your feelings are totally valid. I remember I still to some sense feel like I've been broken for a while, or I wasn't enough of a woman or something. And then my logical brain kicks in and it's like, you didn't ask for this, but your emotions are what they are.
Mhm.
And so working through therapy um, has been great. But just knowing that you're you didn't do this to yourself. You didn't ask for this, and you're not alone, and you're just dealing with the cards you're dealt.
Yes, I think that's excellent. Thank you so much
Mhm.
for that. And the second part to this question, what is something that you wish people not going through this process understood?
I think this one's also very near and dear to me is um I think a lot of people, you find yourself comparing yourself to a lot of people that didn't have to go through this. And so again, there's those feelings of feeling like, why me? Or why am I the issue? What is wrong with me? And having people or friends validate that for you is such like a life-changing thing. Um, I know at some point I was talking to a friend on the phone, like I was just venting out my emotions. And the one thing she said to me that has stuck with me forever was, you know, it's not your fault, right? And I was like, but it's me, I'm the issue. And she was like, but you know, it's not your fault. You didn't do anything. You didn't ask for this. You didn't do something purposely to make this happen. It's just what you were given and you're working with it. And having her say that over and over and over, like finally established it in my head. And between that and like my husband reassuring me different times, it takes such an emotional toll on your value. And having people reassure you that you are worthy of this, that you didn't do anything wrong, it just makes such a difference. And I think the other part with it is having people acknowledge that it's not just a process you go through, it's like a life, I don't want to say life change, but it is a big life event. Like it's definitely been the most difficult thing I've done in my life. I know it's definitely the most difficult thing my husband and I have been through in our 5 years married and plus more years dating. Um, and I know we've each changed in different ways. It's taken us through very difficult times and struggles that I never thought it would. And I think we've come out on the other end stronger and definitely impacted forever. So it's a part of us, and I just think yeah, it's just something that is just kind of engraved in us now because this is how we're creating our family.
Hearing this first half of your story, your journey, Lore, it touches my heart, and it just says, and it just like again gives hope to other, families, couples, women going through this. And to hear your story again, it gives, them that little bit of hope. Like it's doable. It can happen.
Mhm. Yeah, and I know part of it is, you try all this and there's no guarantee at the end that you're gonna get it to work. And I think part of it is you have to come to the conclusion, maybe even before you start the process, that no matter what happens, you're worthy of parenthood and having a family. And if not through this process, there's other options.
Mhm.
And I know my husband and I had discussed that before we started and got on the same page. Like, if this doesn't work, it is not the end of building a family for us. And I truly believe that's what got us through a lot of the emotional stress of it, is this is not the end. It's just another way, but it's not the end.
Mhm.
I definitely think you deserve a round of applause from us.
Thank
Yay.
One,
you.
for
I
coming
didn't cry
on.
today.
Did you have a smoothie today? Is that why?
No, I threw up those smoothies like in second trimester, so I haven't been able to go back.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, it's a lot of stuff going on.
Well, we're definitely grateful that you came on the show. And honestly, I hope that everybody hears this story and just it's a testament to your strength, to your resilience. And we are so excited for you. I'm so excited to record the next episode with you.
Thank you.
And we are very grateful for you reaching out and wanting to share your story. This is something that more people need to hear about. This is something that in our community, people need to
Mhm.
hear about and know that other people are going through. And we will, again, get into that a little bit in the next episode. We'll have more for you guys, more personal, if that's even possible. We've already gone so personal. But one thing I did want to make sure that I mentioned in this episode that we had discussed with Lore prior to recording, we are aware of the Alabama state court decision that came down at this point a couple of weeks ago. And it is not lost on us that we did not talk about it. That was a choice that we made with Lore. Us, Glowing Up Latina, do plan to come out with an episode on it at a later date. But for now, that is where we leave that. And just know that we didn't ignore it. We didn't say, oh, we're not going to discuss that or act like it doesn't exist. We are aware. It's just not in this episode. It wasn't for this time. So before we go, as you know, we have to ask you, what is making you glow this week?
We had our 32-week scan. So we've actually had a high-risk pregnancy. We had a few issues. And so I have a lot more scans than normal people, but I don't mind seeing her often. Uh, so I think what's making me glow is seeing how she's growing. She was sticking out her tongue at us, which was very nice. And my husband didn't believe how much she kicks me, and we saw it in real time, her little karate moves. So definitely seeing that and seeing how much she's just becoming like this like tiny, funny, sassy human already.
Mhm.
So that's definitely making me glow, even though I'm terrified to push her out because she's in like the 93rd percentile.
Oh,
Oh.
goodness.
Yeah, the doctor even said she's big about the belly, but everything else is like in the 80th percentile. So I'm
Mhm.
like, what does that mean? Like, are you just making fun of her bonza? Like, what is happening?
She's just eating right. You feeding her very well.
I know he was like, maybe lay off the sweets. And I was like, mm.
No.
I was like, I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
They're always so cute when they come out so chubby, but I guess I didn't realize like there is a person who has to push that out. So
Yeah,
Oh.
as much as I was like, oh, like I see like the big cheeks. I'm like, oh, what if there's a big belly that has to come out?
Ooh.
But yeah, even being terrified, that made me glow.
Aw. Well, I have to say, my glow, honestly, is this episode. I mentioned at the top of it that, work has been kicking my butt here lately, but you are so positive, you're radiant, you're glowing, and your energy is
Mhm.
definitely rubbing off on me. So thank you so much.
I took a nap today, so it worked.
Maybe that's what I missed. Maybe I missed nap time today.
I was gonna say that was the secret, just to take a nap.
Mhm.
And Amanda, what is making you glow?
Yes, this week I said at the beginning of the episode, this is a highlight of my day. Looked forward to it all day today to have the speak with you, Lore, about this and how important it is for this to get out to our community. It means a lot. So thank you so much. I really did. This was my glow for the week.
Oh, well, thank you guys for giving me a chance to say it. Um, yeah, I ever since starting, I've found out two of my friends have also fertility issues and they're leaning towards going towards IVF or other treatments. And as hard as it was for them to tell me when they told me and I was like, hey, this is what we just did. I saw the instant glow in their face. Like, I am not alone. I could go to you. I have somebody now. And I just hope this reaches people that it reaches people and it tells them that they're not alone. It's really common and hopefully it gets talked to a lot more.
And don't forget, you guys, you can still make your submissions for season 3. You can find the link to that Google form in our show notes. I will get back on the Instagram. I swear, I know I haven't put the box up in a week. Don't come for me. I'm trying. um, Also, don't forget to rate us 5 stars on Spotify. Leave us a glowing review on Apple Podcasts. You can catch us back here next week and every Wednesday until we hit 30 episodes.
Yes, find us on Instagram at Glowing Up Latina, like our posts, laugh at our little bloopers, fill yourself in on our episode related posts, and send us, topics to fill in the rest of the season. Maybe we'll discuss one of them. And you can send them at glowinguplatina@gmail.com.
And until next week, keep glowing, mija.
Bye.
Bye.